today, but Max wrote an article about revisiting the class of 2019 team recruiting rankings. Now, what you see on the screen is where they have each school ranked after they've had the full cycle run its course. Then, in parentheses, is where they were ranked before that. As far as, for example, Georgia was the second-ranked recruiting class in 2019. Now, because of what's occurred the last 4 or 5 years, they're number one. But this is an interesting list. So look at Ohio State. Interesting, because rarely would you ever think that they would be 14th in any kind of team rankings, but they were. And then they are two now when you revisit how players developed and what they did in their time in college. Michigan from 8 to 3rd, Alabama from 1 to 4, Clemson from 10 to 5. Now look at the next 5. Look at the differences in the next 5. Penn State 12 to 6, A&M dropped 4 to 7, North Carolina State 32nd back in 2019. They're now 8th. Pittsburgh was 84th.
It's 54th.
54th, excuse me. They're now 9th. And then 22nd was Ole Miss, and they're now at number 10. Now, we'll get to this in a minute, but there's one more list of those who really jumped from big-time numbers. For example, Utah had the 43rd ranked class, 12th. Oregon State, look where they were. 53rd, they're 13th. UTSA was 95th. We know what Jeff Traylor, he knows talent. He recognizes talent. He recognizes diamonds in the rough. 14th. Illinois in the 50s to 17. Fresno State in the 85th number back 2019. Based on what now has occurred, they would be the 20th ranked class in 2019. I always enjoy these, probably more so than where a team might be ranked when the classes are released or signing day December and also in February.
Yeah, that's it's cool to say. It's hard to kind of digest all that information that quickly, but I think I said the other day it'd be interesting to kind of see if there was more of an emphasis put on how classes actually panned out versus all of the excitement and all of the things that we celebrate at the time. Like A&M celebrated this massive recruiting class, number 1 2 years ago. You saw S talking all over social media about the class they put together, what's coming, all this, and then that thing fizzled out in less than a year's time. At least a good portion of it did. So it's just kind of funny that it's like the recruiting thing, like so much is placed on the hype, and then you celebrate the gets, but then like, do they actually end up stars? Do they actually end up panning out in the long run? A lot of times, no, but it doesn't matter because you got what you wanted out of the hype to begin with. And so, yeah, it's great to see that, some schools are, recognized, at least minor, in this article as having done far better than they were probably given credit for at the time, or for having the eye to bring in the talent that eventually could blossom and end up way better than, experts apparently thought that they would be. So, I think that's a testament to those coaching staffs and development and just eye for talent. And, obviously there's another side of that. There's schools that are way worse than they originally were, but, kudos to those who were like 95th and ended up, with a borderline top 25 class.
Yep.
I mean, that's incredibly impressive. It's been when you look back at that, there's been a lot of things that have happened since then with COVID and all those types of things. So there probably should be like a little bit of an asterisk just because there were a lot of things out of your control for some of these classes, probably. NIL, the transfer portal, all came into play. So I'm sure that wreaked havoc on some of these numbers. But I do like being able to look back because if you're going to brag all year about a recruiting class you got or, talk all that noise on signing day, it's not a bad thing to go and revisit and see like what actually that turned out to be and what the facts actually were when all was said and done. So, yeah, kudos to UTSA and others that were obviously far better than we thought at the time.
Utah, we've seen what they've done, and 43rd, and they're not going to be a top 10 class. I don't know their highest class. I could be wrong, but the fact that they are where they are based on looking back at who was produced, who developed, and who went on to do this or that from All-American to whatever, that's pretty impressive. All right, now, Garrett, let's go.